George, what happened to our bridge game?
Well, I told the other fellas to come at 9 o'clock. I want to watch our television show.
Oh, that's right. You're on tonight.
Yeah. Tonight is the first of 6 repeats before we start our new season.
Well, George, it's a beautiful place you got here.
Thanks, Joe.
That $2 investment you made certainly paid off.
What $2 investment?
The price of your marriage license.
Joe, it's a cute show tonight. It starts out with Gracie and Blanche sitting on the patio, and Gracie got a letter from her mother. Come on in, I want you to see it.
Hi, Gracie. Hello, Blanche. Boy just brought the paper. Says we can expect rain.
Oh, don't worry. He's only 11 years old. What does he know about the weather?
Never thought of that. Oh, letter from San Francisco with a 10-cent stamp and a 3-cent stamp.
Mm-hmm.
Must be from your mother, huh?
Yes, it is. She always adds a 10-cent stamp as a tip for the postman.
Very thoughtful. Gracie, may I have a cup of coffee, please?
Oh, sure. I'll get George another cup later.
Thank you. Well, any news?
Mm-hmm. You know, my mother is terribly humiliated about the kind of television show George and I do.
She's humiliated?
Yes. She said she had a house full of company watching our last show, and she says they just sat there and laughed at it.
Oh, I see.
She thinks we should change part of it.
Which part?
George.
Don't you worry, Gracie. Your mother will get used to George.
I doubt it. She hasn't even gotten used to my father yet.
Well, anyway, I like your show just the way it is, even though I have to fight to see it.
You do?
Oh, that husband of mine. All he wants to look at is football and wrestling and baseball. I told him, get a set of your own, put it in your room. He says we can't afford it.
Ooh, he's such a cheapskate.
I did not. I said if I ever get $200 for that beach property at Malibu, the cheapskate might get another television set.
By the time you sell that swamp, I will be too old and weak to turn on a television set.
You can only get weaker. Come home and fix my lunch.
Ooh, he makes me tired. He'll never sell that swamp for $200.
Blanche, aren't you going to say hello to Harry?
I'm not even going to talk to him. I can wring his neck.
What is she mad at me for?
Well, I don't know. She's mad at her husband, too.
Oh.
But I can't blame her. He won't buy another television set until they sell a swamp. George, Harry Von Zeller's here.
I'll be right out.
Well, Gracie, if you mean that Malibu property, it's no bargain, you know. A friend of mine looked at it. He says all you could use it for is as a parking lot for canoes.
Hey, that's a wonderful idea.
Hello, Harry.
Hi, George.
Harry, look at this script and tell me what you think of it.
Okay.
George, will you do a favor for me?
Sure.
On our next show, could we say that we have 4 acres we'd like to sell as a parking lot for canoes?
I can't. On the next show, I got to mention that the black horses eat more than the white horses because who was on first base?
You know, sometimes I think he's working too hard.
Yeah, me too, Gracie.
Oh, wait a minute. I've got an idea. Give me the paper.
What's your idea?
Well, I'll sell those 4 acres for Blanche and get her a television set.
That swamp, Gracie, nobody would buy that.
Oh, sure. Lots of people advertise for property. Well, now, look, here's one. It says, wanted good acreage for oranges. Oh, no, that wouldn't do. She might trade it for a television set, but never for oranges.
Oh, Gracie, you enjoyed that, huh?
Oh, sure. I'd rather laugh than hear a good joke.
Well, I'm going to run on inside. I don't want to get mixed up in this.
Oh, I'll do it myself. Only, Harry, don't tell it to anybody. I want it to be a surprise for Blanche.
No. Well, Gracie, if you sell that bog, it'll surprise everybody.
Yeah. You like that, huh?
Yeah, I'd rather laugh than hear a good joke.
Now Gracie wants me to try to sell Harry Morton's swamp on our program. I not only get it at home, I get it on the outside, too. Everybody makes suggestions. They want little plugs. For instance, we once did our version of the landing of the Pilgrims. And a friend of mine who manufactures women's sports clothes asked me if Priscilla could step off the Mayflower wearing Herkimer pedal pushers and swinging a tennis racket. And not long ago, a man came backstage. And he said, Mr. Burns, I represent the morticians of America. Next week, we're having our annual convention, and we know you're a big cigar smoker, and we'd be happy if every time you went to get one, you take it out of a humidor with 6 brass handles on it. And to show his appreciation, he said that when the time comes for me to take my last bow, they'd give me a professional discount. Such an attractive offer, it doesn't pay to go on living. Of course, everybody doesn't want plugs. Some people just want to change the show. I worked with the vaudeville act, the Morgan Midgets. They were always working. 4 of the cutest little people you've ever seen. The next time I saw them, they were all over 6 feet tall and couldn't get a job. I asked them what happened, and they said somebody talked us into changing our act. Of course, you get compliments, too. I was in the Brown Derby restaurant, and a man walked up to me, and he said, Mr. Burns, I watch your show every week, and I love it. In fact, my whole family loves your show, but I've got one suggestion. You're not using Portland Hoffer enough. And he said I was a sucker not to go into television. I'll be happier when Gracie gets home. She's been gone for 5 hours. Oh, someone at the front door. Excuse me. Yes?
Mr. Burns?
Yeah?
I'm sorry to trouble you so late. My name is Gibson. I'm with the legal firm of O'Brien, Powell, Cooper & Gibson.
You better get a lawyer. They gave you bad billing.
Mrs. Burns at home?
No, she's out trying to buy a television set. By the way, who did she back into?
No one. I'm here because she sold my client a piece of property she represented as a fruit orchard. It turned out to be a swamp.
Not my wife.
She got a $200 deposit from my client by fraud and misrepresentation. She outsmarted him.
No, I'm sure it's not my wife.
Listen to this, Mr. Burns. For sale, 4 acres of beautiful fruit orchard. Must sacrifice, leaving for Europe. P.S. Owner leaving for Europe, not fruit orchard. As you admit it. Now, if you'll just return the $200 deposit.
Look, there must be some mistake. She doesn't own that property.
You're sure she doesn't own it?
I'm positive.
Well, that puts a different complexion on the matter. Selling property you don't own constitutes a felony. I'm going to have my client sue you for $10,000. See you in court.
Just a minute. Okay. I'll make out a check for $200. I'll talk to my wife when she gets home. $200. Gracie and her ideas. Well, there you are.
Thank you. George Burns. Of Burns and Allen?
That's right. Don't you think I've got $200?
I think you have much more. We're going to sue for $25,000. Goodbye, Mr. Burns. Oh, by the way, I enjoyed your show last week.
Thanks. Better go over and see Harry Morton and clear this up. Harry, I'm glad you're home.
Oh.
Hello, Blanche.
George. I'll get you some coffee.
Harry, I'd like to talk to you about those 4 acres of beach property you've got.
Yeah, I know. On a clear day, you can see the bottom. Don't you have any new jokes about it?
Harry, I'd like to buy it.
You're kidding.
No. What are you asking?
$300?
I'll take it. Over a barrel, I just got to have it. I'll go get your check.
Now, just a minute, George. Look, we've been friends and neighbors for 11 years. Is this property for you or is it for somebody else?
It's for me, Harry.
For you, it's $400.
I'll take it. Here's your check.
Hey, what about that dope? Giving me $400 for that property doesn't work. Say, maybe he knows something. Maybe he wants it for business property. No, there isn't a building within miles of it. Hey, maybe there's a highway going through there.
Or a canal. Next thing, you'll be telling me there's oil on that property.
Oil, Blanche, I bet that's what it is. George has found out that there's oil in that property and he's trying to get... Look, he's coming back. You get out of here and watch me testing. Yes?
Here's a check.
I see, Casey. Yes. Well, I'll tell him. Mm-hmm. Yeah, bye. I'm awfully sorry, George. I've just been talking to my partner, and, well, I quoted you the wrong price. He says the property costs $500.
Not yet, Blanche. I didn't say I'd take it. Now, Blanche, I'll take it.
George, come back here. You ought to be ashamed of yourself, taking advantage of a friend, a neighbor, a fellow that you've palled around with all these years.
I'm taking advantage?
Yes, and that property is not for sale at any price.
Well, it's... Oh. You had no right to sell Harry Morton's property. It didn't belong to you. Now we're being sued for $25,000 thanks to you.
Oh, Judge, you don't have to thank me. I'm your wife.
This is awful. Like you ruined me.
Oh? Is it too strong?
No.
Too weak?
No.
Well, it's got to either be too strong or too weak. There's no other way to make good coffee.
Wonder where that geologist is.
Well, if you hang your things up, you know where it is.
The geologist is a man. Everybody thinks there's oil there, so I had to hire this. Well, that's probably him now. Come in. Harry?
Oh, hi, George. Read the script. And you know something? This satire on Josephine and Napoleon is just great.
Wonderful.
I was wondering, George, there's a friend of mine, Charlie Herkimer, who makes...
Josephine is not going to wear pedal pushers. No.
Well, I tried.
Well, good. Gracie, I'm going over to the geologist's office. Maybe I was supposed to meet him there. And if he gets here, don't let him leave until I get back.
All right, I won't.
See you later, Harry.
Yeah, bye, George.
Bye.
All right.
Harry,
Yeah?
how do you keep a geologist from leaving?
Well, I don't know, Gracie. How do you keep anybody from leaving? As Dale Carnegie would say, get him to talk about himself. You know, the more he talks about himself, the more interesting he'll think you are.
Well, it doesn't seem to make any sense. But it's a wonderful idea. I'll do it.
Yeah. You see, what I meant was, get him to talk about his work. Or, yeah, get him to talk about his family. Oh, that must be him now. I'll go out the back way. I want to see the Martins.
All right. Are you the geologist?
Yes, I'm Bob Standish. Is Mr. Burns home?
Well, no, he isn't, but I'm Mrs. Burns.
Oh, I'll come back later then.
Oh, no, how are your wife and child?
My wife?
If the neighbors hear you talking about yourself, they might think you're conceited. Come on in. Mr. Standish, let me take your things. Won't you sit over there? Now, tell me about your wife and children.
Oh, I don't have a wife.
Really? Then don't bother telling me about your children.
Mrs. Burns, when is your husband coming home? I know that I'm late, but it was unavoidable. I went through a red light and a policeman held me up.
Oh, that's terrible. I hope he left you enough money to pay your fine.
I think maybe I'll come back when your husband is here.
Oh, sit down, Mr. Standish. Now, tell me about yourself. I know you hunt for oil, but where do you find it?
Well...
Naturally, but how do you know which well it's in?
Yeah.
Sit down. Now, let's talk.
Whose idea is this?
Harry Von Zell. He says the more you talk about Dale Carnegie, the more interesting I am.
Harry Von Zell. Mm-hmm. All right. What'll we talk about?
Well, let's talk about geology. That's something you understand.
All right.
Is it hard to find oil?
Oh, yes, indeed. I had a crew drilling down in Texas for months. They drilled 10 wells, and they all came up dry.
Oh, well, why didn't you give them a drink and let them go on drilling?
I meant the well. Mrs. Burns, I wonder if you would go into the kitchen and get me a drink of water.
Well, of course.
I've been 20,000 feet above the ground and 20,000 feet under the ground. And I've never run into anything like this before.
Here, you can go now.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Gracie, did Mr. Standish get here?
Yes, I got him out just in time.
You got him out?
Well, you told me to keep him here until you got back, and I did.
Oh, no. Mr. Standish. Well, I've got the geologist's report. You don't have to worry. I gave the man back the $200 and everything is straightened out. There's no oil on the property. All they found were a couple of old sardine cans. And even they were dry. But it did cost me $75. $25 for the geologist and $50 to drag the swamp for his briefcase. There's Gracie. Can I have a little talk with her? Yes, Gracie?
Oh, George, I just bought these. Will you help me fix them?
Sure. Well, I got out of that mess. But it shows you what trouble can be caused by butting into other people's business.
Oh, don't I know? You know, after I put that ad in the paper this morning, the bus I was on had the nosiest bus driver. Well, he was butting into every...
You were on a bus? What happened to our car?
Oh, George, don't worry. The auto club will bring it back. Anyway, this bus driver...
Gracie, what happened to our car?
Well, there was no place for me to park in front of the newspaper office. So I asked the man if he'd drive it around the block until I came out.
But this man might never bring it back.
I took care of that. As he drove away, I took his license number.
We'll have to report that later.
Yes. Oh, dear. Say, you know, these look fresher than those. Well, anyway, he certainly was a nosy driver.
He was a nosy bus driver, huh?
Yes, he was. But a lady got in with a little baby in her arms, and she handed him a $20 bill. And he said, "Is this the smallest you got?" So I said, "Why don't you just drive the bus and let her husband worry about how many children she's got?"
What happened to the lady and the baby?
She moved to the back of the bus.
I wonder why.
And then a couple got in. They were holding hands. And the fella says, "Does this bus go past La Brea?" And the bus driver said, "Yes, how far do you want to go?" And I said, "As long as they're not annoying the other passengers, what business is it of yours?"
The bus driver had no right to butt in.
No, he certainly didn't. He said, "Lady, do you know these people?" So I said, "Look, nosy, even if I did, I wouldn't introduce them to you."
What happened to this couple?
Well, they wanted to get away from this nosy driver,
So
too.
they went to the back of the bus?
To the back of the bus.
I thought so, yeah.
Yes. Now, you know, these flowers look better than those. Well, anyway, then a sailor got on.
Yeah.
And so he said he was going to San Pedro. And the bus driver said, "Well, then you'll need a transfer."
I'll bet you straightened the bus driver out.
Well, I had to. If he wanted a transfer, he wouldn't have joined the Navy in the first place.
Did the bus get crowded after a while?
Oh, it was jammed. But it's the last time I'll ever drive a bus.
You mean that the bus driver lost?
No, he got off and walked.
Oh, yeah. Yes, he wanted to change the scenery.
I'll be right with you, Blanche. George, throw those away. What is it, Blanche?
Gracie, I want you to come right over. I've got a big surprise for you and George. Oh, only be sure and use the front door.
All right, we'll both be over.
Okay.
Blanche has a big surprise for us.
And I got a surprise for Harry that's a beauty. Butler?
Who is calling?
I don't hear anybody calling, do you?
I can't believe my eyes.
Oh, George and Gracie. How do you like Witherspoon?
Well, he's nice, but I think you should have kept Harry.
George, your neighbor, a millionaire. I'm in the oil business. How do you like my wardrobe? Got it planed in from Dallas. Neiman Marcus.
Fits nice around the Neiman, but it's a little tight around the Marcus. Harry, I've got some bad news.
Oh, George, don't think anything of it. I'll take care of everything. Wait a spoon. Yes, sir. Cocktails for 4. Yes, sir. George, what do you think of the television set I got Blanche?
It's a beauty.
Got my order in for 2 Cadillacs.
2 Cadillacs?
One for me, one for my chauffeur.
So he's gonna have his own Cadillac?
George, with all my money, would I ride in the same car with a chauffeur?
Harry, I've got some bad news.
I'm telling you not to worry about it, George. Just sign my name. Wonder what's holding up those cocktails.
Okay.
George, look at Blanche's new mink coat.
Beautiful.
It's beautiful, Blanche, but Harry, I've got some bad news.
Cocktails with a spoon.
I'd rather have mine with a straw.
This news right here, I think you better take a look at this, huh, Harry? Take a look.
I just meant George.
Okay.
Ah. All right, George, your troubles are my troubles. Let's take a little look at it, huh, Blanche?
Found out there's no oil.
Oh. With a spoon.
Yes, madam?
Put some oil in the cocktails, please.
Appearing on tonight's show were Lou Merrill as Mr. Gibson, Bob Sweeney as Mr. Standish, and Rex Evans as Witherspoon. Blanche Morgan's Sapphire Mink by Edwards and Kroll.